So according to the experts, you need $1.5 to $3.5 million to retire, and some experts saying you need $5 million minimum to even think about retiring. So it's not surprising that the average American thinks that you need $1.8 million to retire on average, but it's all a lie. When you actually dive into all of those numbers and the folks saying those things, the numbers are derived from ridiculous assumptions, outdated information, and a system that has been broken for a couple of decades, and nobody wants to admit that it's broken. The good news is the lie is easy to disprove with basic math. No fancy calculators or formulas or any of the BS that kind of gets spun into scenarios where experts say a comfortable life cannot be had if you don't have at least $300,000 a year to live on. Yeah, guys, I'm not kidding. That's what some of the experts are saying now. I know it's getting stupid out there because extreme sells. Unfortunately, that's what people are doing. That's what they want. And those folks are twisting themselves in knots trying to prove it to you that you do need this extreme amount in order to retire. It's all a lie. You don't need to listen to it. So let's look at how to determine what you actually need to do in order to retire and be financially free. So first, you need to be expense-based. Don't worry, guys. I'm going to explain this, I promise. But everyone focuses on investments or assets to solve retirement. Almost exclusively, that is what everything focuses on. That's what you hear about. That's what you read about. That's what everything focuses on, is that number, trying to get there. Those investments, those assets. The problem is there's two parts to the equation. Two parts, not just one. And if you get this right, you unlock the secret to not needing these crazy high numbers that 99.9% of the people out there will never reach. I mean, if you want to work forever, go ahead. Focus on your assets first. But if you want to hit financial freedom much faster, focus on the expense side first instead, because expenses are the key to this. So let me show you why and kind of explain it all to you so this all makes sense. Now, like I just said, everybody focuses on how much I need to retire. Nobody focuses on the expense column and what's wrong with your expense column. More importantly, how to control it. It's just basically, hey, take 80% of your income or take 80% of your expenses that you spend right now, and that's the number that you need. That's actually not true at all, because you're not addressing problems within your expenses in the first place, first off. And secondarily, if you can get that number down significantly lower, now it lowers the asset base that you need. There's not one number that's right for everybody. Everybody has different expenses, different lifestyles, different everything that they want to live. But a lot of folks wouldn't mind living a lower lifestyle, wouldn't mind lowering some of their expenses. As a matter of fact, that may be the only way most folks are actually going to be able to retire. But because they're over here trying to build up their assets, at the same exact time, their expenses are going up and up and up and up. And by choice, by the way, I'm not just talking about inflation pushing all of our stuff up. You can't help that one. But you sure as heck don't need a new car every 2.5 years like almost everybody in America does on average. You definitely don't need to eat out all the time like you do. You definitely don't need a lot of the things that we all do that continue to push that expense side up to where it never seems like we can catch back up. That's because we're not focused on our expenses at all. We're just over here focusing on our assets. And guess what happens? Unfortunately, whenever those assets go up, we get even worse with our expenses. Our expenses go up even worse because you kind of feel some relief there. And you're kind of like, oh, okay, well, now I can spend more, instead of keeping the focus right there on your expenses. Right in our Blacklist program that we teach, one of the first things that we do is we just kind of do a dummy model per se. We're just kind of like, hey, take your budget, fill out the tracker there with every single expense that you have. Now remove your housing, remove your cars, and remove a few other silly things there. And now take a look at that bottom number. That once you subtract your expenses from your income, a lot of folks found they were upside down. Other folks are finding that, hey, that's why I can't invest, because I have, just a couple $100. And then I take that and I spend that too. Like I said, some of our folks figured out they were upside down. They didn't even know it, that they were upside down whenever they did that number. But what you start to see is whenever you just eliminate those things right out, all of a sudden they have thousands of dollars to spend at the end of the month. And more importantly, now take that number, push it over here towards those assets. Now you got thousands of dollars coming over here into your asset column to buy stocks, to buy a lot of other things. We'll talk about assets here in just a second. But the point being, you're now feeding a lot more over here. So all of a sudden, this column, if you kind of map it out over a 5-year time frame, we'll say, is exploding in value over here. And over here, your expenses are actually lower. More importantly, what that means is you need less over here in the asset column. So it's like you're getting double the acceleration. Not only is this going up faster, but you actually need less, which means you're going to hit that number that you need quicker as well. But unfortunately, everybody focuses over here on assets, which of course means they're neglecting their expenses, which of course puts you behind over here in this column, because you got less coming over here because you're not focused over here. So this gets out of control, stays out of control. You might not even know it. And then you're not able to invest a whole lot over here. You're just able to invest the minimums. But as this grows, you need more of this because you're just focused on 80% of whatever the heck I spend. Well, if your spending goes up every year, then you're never going to actually catch back up if you're not able to invest appropriately over here. This number actually gets larger and larger and larger and larger, and you fall further and further and further behind. When you focus on the expenses first, that is where you hit the magic. That is where the magic happens to where you can actually retire on as little as $300,000. That would be all that the nest egg that you have there in regards to that. Now we'll talk about why I don't even like quote unquote putting a number out there in just a second, but that's the actual reality of what you're dealing with. Is the number over here goes from maybe you need 1.2 million down to a 300,000, depending upon how you focus on this expense column in the first place. And then of course, what's your plan for retirement as well? That's another piece you got to plan out. What does my retirement look like? Where am I going to retire? How much is it going to cost me to make that a feasible number? That right there is where you start. You start right there at that expense column. So now we can do the second piece, which is focus on different assets, not a number. Now that we've taken care of your expenses over here, right? We can focus on the assets to feed those expenses. But I want you to stop focusing on having $1 million or any other number like that. I understand it. It makes sense. But then a lot of times I ask people, why do you need that number? What is that doing? What is that fueling? Well, they just punch it in some sort of an online calculator and they don't really know what it means to retirement. They don't really know what do they need to put that in? Do they need that in cash? Do they need that in other assets? Does it need to spin off dividends? How much do they need in dividends? Is it going to actually be sufficient in life? Are you going to sell it off? How do you sell off your stocks to fund your lifestyle? All kinds of other questions like that. They have no clue. They don't know what any of it means. So to me, the number doesn't mean anything. And more importantly, it actually limits your options for funding retirement. Everybody just has this idea, I need $1 million. Or I guess statistically, it's $1.8 million. Cool. Again, there's a lot of different questions within that. I could literally sit around and ask 100 different questions that nobody's going to have an answer to. But you're limited in your options whenever you're thinking that way because you can only think of one way, either cash or stock market. That's it. And we all pretend like there's nothing else. It makes everything linear. But in the world of money, money is a buffet that has many different paths to take to actually get you to fund your expenses. Because in the end, that's what it's about, is having a number to fund those expenses, the cash flow to fund those expenses. I don't care if you got $10 million. If it's not spending you off anything and you can't unlock the money and sell it in order to fund these expenses, it's worthless. It doesn't, cool. It's a cool number. You can brag a lot, I guess. But if it isn't able to fund your expenses, you're going to go bankrupt pretty darn fast or live a pretty poor lifestyle. I can have something over here that's worth way less than that $10 million. And if it's spending me off 30% a year and funding my expenses over here, well, I feel much better about that situation than the first situation. So being focused on just a pure number limits the many paths down to just one or two, and you don't want to do that. So what exactly do I mean by all this? Well, in the Blacklist Financial Freedom Program, we teach a complete step-by-step way to have a three-pronged approach to this, basically attacking your assets or having assets. We basically have a three-pronged approach to it, and we actually do coaching calls and we kind of work through each of these so you have the ability to not focus on a number, but focus on assets to pay your expenses. And we do that three main ways: through real estate, through stocks, and through a side hustle. And again, there's a step-by-step process for each one of those to implement them all. But more importantly, what it allows you to do is it allows you to just focus on, I need X amount of money every month to fund this amount of income, right? Here's your expenses right here. This is what you need. Let's just say it's $3,000. I'm just putting a number out there. Great. Out of that three-pronged approach, I have three different ways to try to earn $3,000. Now, you may end up with one earns more than the other. One just may appeal to you more than the other. But the point being, we're taking a three-pronged approach to getting ourselves to that deal. That three-pronged approach has nothing to do with a number. That's great. Cool. I don't know. It doesn't matter how much real estate you own in regards to the total amount. It sounds cool, right? It makes for great social media posts, but it means nothing in regards to what's the cash flow. If it's not cash flowing anything and you're having to put money into it each month, and it doesn't matter if it's worth $100 million. You're not making money on it. You're paying into it instead. Doesn't matter. But if you have cash flowing real estate, all I care about is what's it spending me off every month. If it's spending me off $3,000 a month, it's paying for my expenses over here. And then if I throw in a side hustle where I'm making, let's just say, an extra $1,000 there, I'm now above the expenses that I need. I can use that money to invest maybe in the stock market instead and let that grow. And then maybe I reach a point later on to where maybe there's something going on with my real estate there. Hey, no problem. Then I can just pull from my stock portfolio there and take care of those expenses and move right along. Or maybe I'm doing a side hustle that I absolutely love. And it actually, because I love it and I'm so passionate about it, maybe it turns into something 5 years from now to where now all of a sudden it can fund everything. So now all of a sudden my lifestyle, my net worth, and everything else is moving up instead of trying to get this dramatic number and then drawing everything down. It puts you in the exact opposite scenario. Guys, you have to get past the lie that you need X amount of dollars in order to retire. Instead, you need to focus on your expenses and then assets that actually draw money to actually pay for those expenses, not a random arbitrary number over here. And founder spots where you get free lifetime access are still available to the blacklist, where you get basically an entire program that is designed to walk you step by step from zero to hero, from nothing to financially free and able to retire in as little as 1 year, but realistically, it's going to take about 3 to 5 years in order for you to get there. Make sure you check out the pinned comment down there. It's a complete system with coaching. We walk you through every single step by step, even right down to how to house hack, how to buy real estate. All of it is included in there. Make sure you check out the pinned comment and see if a membership's right for you. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.